Hello, welcome back to another video on astrology. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the Jupiter transit. That is a very popular transit that happens year after year, and this time it happens on October 11th, 6:45 p.m. with reference to Indian Standard Time. And in this transit, what really happens is Jupiter moves out of Libra, out of Tula Rashi, owned by Venus, which he does not like to be in, and moves over into the next sign, which is Scorpio, ruled by Mars, his dear friend. So there are actually two kinds of results, the general and the specific results. The general result is considering it from the point of view of the world, not referring to any particular moon sign. So this transit of Jupiter is going to be favorable because Jupiter likes to be in Scorpio more than being in Libra. Whenever it comes to transit results, Saturn is the big boss. There's no denying that because Saturn is a karaka for karma, and Saturn is favorable only in house 3, 6 and 11 from your moon sign. Rest of the houses is not good. And Saturn also causes Sade Satya, 7.5 year Saturn. So whenever you read Jupiter transit, you need to know where Saturn is. If you're going through Sade Sati, Jupiter transit matters a lot because Jupiter is always the hope, the planet of hope, the planet of blessings. Jupiter is the karaka for gold, he is the karaka for wealth, he is the karaka for family size, increase in the size of the family, marriage, and all the auspicious events in a person's life is governed by Jupiter. And Jupiter is favorable in house 2 because house 2 is family and wealth. He is favorable in the 5th house, house of children and house of rewards, house number 7, house of marriage, house number 9, Bhagya, luck, and 11th house, fulfillment of desires. So you can see the parallel between the good houses and Jupiter. First of all, you need to obviously know what is your moon sign, and if you want to know what is your moon sign, all you need to do is find out where the moon is in which sign in your horoscope, and that's your moon sign. Using common sense, you can always figure it out that your moon sign is not unique. 1/12 of the world's population share the same moon sign as you. So that's not very specific. But even then, even though it is generalized, it has a lot of meaning. For example, when you say a particular large area of land is being hit by a cyclone, even though it's very generalized, it still holds good because the entire place is affected by the cyclone. But if you look at who is affected by it, people living in strong buildings may not be affected, whereas those who are living in huts, they will be the ones who will be first affected. So even though there is a general effect, there is also the specific result. Therefore, you must know how to read it from using other methods, not just the moon sign. So for that, you need your Ashtaka Varga. Your Ashtaka Varga is a number chart, almost similar to your main chart, but it is, instead of planets, it's filled with numbers. And then you need what is called the Bin Ashtaka Varga of Jupiter. And the scores in Bin Ashtaka Varga of Jupiter can range anywhere from 0 to 8 in a particular sign. In this case, it is Scorpio. You're going to find out what's the score you got in Scorpio, Vrishchika Rasi. And you also need to know what is the Sarvasha Varga score in Scorpio. The higher it is, the more benefits you can expect from a Jupiter transit. Or even if the Jupiter transit is not good, if the score is very high, then you need not worry about the challenges that Jupiter is expected to give. So it's very important that you know all these details. Anyway, I'll be explaining all this once I switch over to the green board, which will start off from Mesha Rashi, and then Rishabha Rashi, and then Mithuna Rashi, and go on up to Meena Rashi. So I'm going to cover all the 12 signs. But as a sort of disclaimer, I would like to tell you that moon sign is not everything, because you might have a different kind of horoscope. Each one of your horoscope is quite unique. So you also need to know what is your dasha and antardasha that you are going through, and you will have to combine all these influences together, all this data together, to to arrive at what is possible right now. But whatever said and done, let's say if you are going through a very good dasha and antardasha, if the transits are bad, you don't have to worry at all. Whereas if you are also going through a bad dasha and antardasha and then the transits are bad, then you will have to definitely do all the remedies connected to the transit. So at the end of this video, I have given some information on what remedies one should do in case Jupiter transit is not good. So if Jupiter is well placed, then you have ample chances for the next 1 year in terms of auspicious events in your life. If not, all you need to do is to do the astrological remedies connected to Jupiter. So now let's get back to the green board. Before we get into the Jupiter transit with regard to a particular moon sign, let's understand the general overall basics of this how to study transit results. So there are many things involved in transit results, and out of them one most important point is what is called as the Ashtaka Varga, the Sarvashtaka Varga and the Bhinnashtaka Varga. It is a number chart, and please refer to your Sarvashtaka Varga and please check what is the score that this particular sign, which is called Scorpio or Vrishchika, has obtained. There are only two possibilities. Either it is greater than or equal to 28 or it is less than 28. So if it is greater than or equal to 28, the goodness of this Jupiter transit will always increase, because the points obtained here is donated by so many other grahas in your horoscope. So this has a very good impact on the transit of any planet that goes over this particular sign, including Jupiter. There is also another chart called the Bhinnashtaka Varga of Jupiter, and you need to refer that and find out what is the score that Jupiter has obtained in this particular sign. And let's assume if it is greater than 4 or equal to 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8, then the goodness of Jupiter in this particular house will be more pronounced. In case the transit is not good, even then, if the score is greater than 4, it actually gets better comparatively than when it is less than 4. Throughout this video, I'll be using this idea. So I've used the color code that green is good and red is bad. So the opposite of it is that I'll be using this one if it is less than 28, and this is for the Bhinnashtaka Varga. And if the score is less than 4, then the Jupiter transit in this sign is it will give more of challenges than the good side of Jupiter. The same holds good for Saturn also. So you can note down the Ashavarga score. What is the score in Sagittarius or Dhanush Rashi? And Saturn's own Ashtaka Varga, what is the score Saturn has obtained, can be known from the Bhinnashtaka Varga of Saturn. It can only be 0, 1, 2 or 3, or it can be 4, 5, 6 or 7. It does not get 8 anywhere. So how do we use this is like this. Suppose the transit is already good. For example, if the moon sign is Pisces, then Jupiter in the 9th is good. And let's say you got 8 here, which is the highest possible, then you will have extraordinary good results. As the score drops from 8 to 4, it is no longer extraordinary. The good effects start decreasing as the score drops. But if it is less than 4, it doesn't mean that it is very bad, but as it gets closer and closer to 0 and 1, then this favorable transit of Jupiter may not be actually effective. This is the reason why those who do not use the Ashtaka scores will actually get predictions that go wrong. The reason is the Sarvashtaka scores were not considered. I will not be repeating this once again throughout the video. So you should always bear in mind, because I don't want to waste precious space, because this is something that I have to repeat for every moon sign. So this is general for all the moon signs. So keep in mind the Sarvashtaka and the Bhinnashtaka of both Jupiter and Saturn. On the green board, you now see the moon in Mesha Rasi. For Mesha Rasi people, the first house with reference to the moon is over here. So that's why we have numbered it like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you now see that Jupiter is, after the transit has happened, it is in the 8th house, and Saturn is already occupying the 9th house. First of all, these transits are not good because Jupiter in the 8th is not good and Saturn in the 9th is not good. Phaladipika, the classical textbook, lets us know that if Jupiter goes over your 8th house, there will be tiresome journeys, often resulting in fatigue, or even without journey, there will be a feeling of fatigue, and there will be a lot of unlucky situations in life because Jupiter is the luck planet, is the natural karaka of the 9th house of luck in the Kalapurusha, and being in the 8th, it is just 1 minus that house, and therefore it is unlucky. Misery and loss of wealth. Now this is attributed to Jupiter being in the 8th sign from the moon. Phaladipika, and Phaladipika also says that if Saturn is in the 9th house, there is loss of wealth, obstacles while performing good deeds, which is Shubhakarya. You try to perform the marriage of your children, then there might be blocks, or danger to the life of an elderly relative equal to father, or sometimes father, and there is always perpetual challenges. So now we will move over to Rishabha Rasi, and in which case the first sign will be this one, and so we have renumbered the houses now: 1, 2, 3, 4, and you see Jupiter is in the 7th house, and Jupiter in the 7th is really good because Phaladipika says that whenever Jupiter goes over your 7th house, there is always the possibility of marriage in case you are looking for marriage, and if you are having children of the marriageable age, then it might be the marriage of the children, and journey which is connected to auspicious work, maybe frequent visits to temples, pilgrimage, even trips abroad, but everything turns out only for the good. Happiness due to your spouse and children, maybe birth of children in your family. All this is possible if Jupiter moves in the 7th house. But how do you blend this information? Saturn is already bad, but you should say, thank God, now Jupiter is no longer in the 6th house, it has come to the 7th house. So from the standpoint of Saturn in the 8th being very challenging, you will heave a sigh of relief, because for one full year you will have the advantage of Jupiter, the protecting planet, always guiding you, telling you what you should do, and you will have astrologers guiding you, you will have Purohits helping you out. Moon sign Mithuna Rashi. So from this you understand that Jupiter is in the 6th house and Saturn is in the 7th. Both the transits are not good. And Phaladipika says that if Jupiter goes over your 6th house from the moon, there will be trouble from enemies, cousins, and diseases. It's very easy to understand this because the 6th house is the house of disease, deaths, and enemies. So enemies can be all sorts of things, something that obstructs your growth, something that causes tension in your life. So Jupiter in the 6th is not good. Saturn in the 7th is, according to Phaladipika, the classical textbook of astrology, says that there will be suffering due to spouse and danger during journeys. That is because the 7th house is always considered the house of the spouse and also travel. So generally when you travel on Saturdays, you will have to be more careful, because so long Jupiter was in your 5th house and protecting you for 1 year before this transit happened. Now no longer Jupiter is in a position to protect you, which means you will have to do all this Jupiter remedies, and you should be particularly very careful on Saturdays, especially while driving on the highways, and taking important decisions on Saturdays. So you should try to convert Saturday into prayer day, just to make sure that you don't get into any kind of anxieties during Saturdays. Now this is Karkadaga moon sign, Cancer moon sign. So this transit is going to be very favorable to you because Jupiter is in your 5th house and Saturn is already favorable in the 6th house. And you might not have got the good effects of Saturn until now, because the previous 2 transits of Jupiter weren't helpful at all. In fact, you went through a very stressful third house transit and a fourth house transit. So um, this is the first time that when Saturn is in the sixth house, very favorable sixth house, Jupiter also turns favorable. So Karkadaga Rashi people will find that this transit is going to help them a great deal. So when Jupiter goes over your fifth house, the possibilities of birth of children or maybe grandchildren, association with noble people, people in power, ministers, politicians, and the king, royal favor, promotions, all these are indicated because of Jupiter being in your fifth from the moon sign. So this is something to celebrate. So you should not let go of any good opportunity that comes your way. Please make the best. As they say, make hay when the sun shines. This is for Simha Rasi people, in which case Jupiter is in your fourth house. To begin with, we need to admit that Jupiter in the third has been very stressful. There must have been a lot of changes in your life, new experiences, and it was very stressful. But now, in comparison to that, the fourth house transit is okay, but the trouble is still not over, because Faladipika says if Jupiter goes over your fourth, there will be a lot of tensions due to your relations, and there may be some kind of humiliation from your relatives, which can include your dear relatives, your blood relatives. So danger from quadrupeds in those days meant only the animals, obviously the four-legged animals, but today it can also mean vehicles. So whenever you are on the highways and where there is the possibility of some danger, make sure you're always wearing the seat belt in the car, and also go slow, be more cautious while driving. And there might be tensions at home, so increase the pujas at home. And Saturn is in your fifth house, and whenever Saturn moves in the fifth house, there is a lot of reduction in wealth, tension, and separation from children, and a lot of confusion of the mind, because the fifth house is the house of the mind, our intellect, and also children, and there will be a lot of obstacles because Saturn is moving in the fifth house. So this is not a good transit, and this is for Kanya Rashi. So counting from your moon sign, this Jupiter transit happens over your third house, and Saturn is in your fourth house. According to classical textbooks, and it has also been my experience too, that I found that Jupiter in the third gives the maximum amount of stress as far as Jupiter transit goes. Loss of position, separation from dears and nears and friends, and obstacles in business, and possibilities of sickness, ailments, most probably connected to the third house. The third house may be the neck, and also there will be loss of sleep, because the third house is 1 minus the fourth house, and Saturn is in the fourth house. A lot of stress due to spouse, separation from spouse in case of strained marriage, and loss of some blood relatives, and loss of wealth. So this is definitely not a good transit. This is for Tula Rasi people, and for you Jupiter is in the second house, very favorable, auspicious, and Saturn is in the third house. So after Karkadaga Rashi, which is Cancer moon sign, you are the lucky people. Both of you are lucky because this time Jupiter and Saturn both are favorably placed at one and the same time. Faladipika says that Jupiter in the second, you will have access to more wealth, acquisition of wealth. In some cases it may be understood as promotions with increment in salaries, domestic happiness, and positive influence over others. This is a time for celebration because second house is the house of family, and Jupiter has a lot to do with the increase in size of family. So those who aren't married, they can expect marriage, or those who are awaiting the birth of children, they can expect the arrival of children. And Saturn in the third, Faladipika and most classical textbooks are in full praise of Saturn in the third in transit. Gain of position, great improvement in career, new jobs, acquisition of wealth, and acquisition of not just wealth alone, but also servants. That means you get into more powerful positions where a lot of people are working for you. This Jupiter transit is definitely going to be very helpful, because in the last two transits, Jupiter transit was not good because it was going through your 12th and the first house. This is for Vrishika Rasi people. When Jupiter goes over your first house, there will be a lot of travel, departure from the place where you've been staying for a long time, a comfort zone. You may have to go to foreign countries. There might be heavy expenditure, and there will also be a lot of stress and strain. And Saturn, as you all know, is causing Sade Satya, 7.5 year Saturn. And luckily for you, this is the last phase of the 7.5 year Saturn. The last 2.5 years of the 7.5 year Saturn. It's coming to an end. But the next transit of Jupiter will be definitely favorable to you. Now let's move the moon to Sagittarius or Dhanur Rashi, in which case Jupiter is in your 12th house and Saturn is right in the middle of Sade Sati, 7.5 year Saturn. So during a time when you're going through 7.5 year Saturn, we wish for a nice Jupiter transit, but you had it in the last Jupiter transit was in the 11th house, but now Jupiter has moved to the 12th house. And Faladipika says there will be a lot of stress and strain and fear caused because of loss of property. So unless absolutely necessary, don't try to sell a property, because you will be selling under loss. And so, but if there is a compulsion, then you will have to agree upon this. But there is also there are remedies available, and I have given a list of remedies that you have to do in case Jupiter transit is not good. At the end of this video, please you can skip the rest of this video and go to the end to know what are the Jupiter remedies in case Jupiter is in a bad spot like this. Also, it's important that you continue to do the 7.5 year Saturn remedy. I have given I've done 2-3 videos on this, so you can watch them. And the next one is for Makara Rashi people. So if the moon is over here in your horoscope, then this transit of Jupiter happens over your 11th house, which is extremely good. Even though you have just started 7.5 year Saturn, this Jupiter in the 11th is going to give you 1 year of protection, and that's because Jupiter in the 11th gives you the possibility of birth of children or grandchildren, as the case may be, and gain of new positions, maybe new jobs, along with increase in salary. And you'll also gain for those of you who aren't married until now, you will get the experience of a marriage, and this is indeed a good transit of Jupiter, comes as a blessing during a 7.5 year Saturn. Now let's move the moon to Kumbha Rashi, and this is for Kumbha Rashi people. Then your moon will be over here, in which case Jupiter is in your 10th house. Jupiter in the 10th usually causes great stress in your livelihood matters, in your karma, and danger to property, position, which is your business or your career, and also stress and strain due to your own children. But you don't have to worry so much, because Saturn is in your 11th house. Because Saturn in the 11th is considered very good. So Saturn in the 11th, all kinds of happiness, gain of wealth, and receipt of unique honor, might be promotions, etc. At a time when Saturn is already well placed in the 11th, you need not be so much worried about Jupiter in the 10th, because Saturn, the big boss in transit, is already placed well. So in comparison, you will notice some kind of stress in your job area, because previously Jupiter was in the favorable 9th, and now he has moved over into your 10th house. Now we have come to the last of the 12 moon signs, Pisces, Meena Rashi people. And the results are, if Jupiter is in the 9th house, just one word: all round prosperity. And Saturn is in your 10th house. Now most classical textbooks say that the 10th house is not good for Saturn to be in. Loss of honor and suffering from diseases, work pressure affects your health, and indulgence in the wrong kind of decisions, etc. But if you use the Veda table, you will be surprised to know that when Jupiter is in the 9th house, at the same time, if any planet goes over your 10th, then this Jupiter transit will be blocked. This is unfortunate that Saturn, already troubling you, has also caused one more trouble. because he has blocked Jupiter from giving the good results of the ninth house transit. So now you know that you have to focus more on Saturn, because Saturn has caused this. So Saturdays you must do a lot of prayers and charity to destroy the blocks created by Saturn on Jupiter. So here is a table of the Veda, or the obstructions that can happen in a transit. This row here can see is the blessing house. So Libra, Cancer and Taurus and Pisces and Capricorn, they all have a wonderful Jupiter transit this time. 2, 5, 7, 9 and 11. What you have over here is the blocking house, the Veda, which means that if when Libra, for Libra people, when because Jupiter is in the second house, it's good. But if any graha moves over your 12th from your Libra sign, which is Kanya or Virgo, then the result of this transit will be blocked. Now, luckily for you, Saturn is not there. Rahu and Ketu is exempted. So, if the Sun or Moon or Mars, if any of these grahas come over your 12th from your moon sign, then the result of the second house will be blocked. If you know the nature of the blocking planet, you can easily guess from where the blocks can come. In this table, you'll also see that for Pisces, the Jupiter transit is very good, but if anyone goes over your 10th house, then the good results of the 9th is blocked, and this time, unfortunately, this time Saturn is in your 10th from your moon sign, which will block the result of the 9th house transit of Jupiter. This table gives you the information on which moon sign is being favored by the current Saturn transit. Tula Rasi has a very favorable transit because Saturn is in the 3rd house, and for Karkadaga Rashi people it is in the 6th house, very favorable, and Kumbha Rashi it is in the favorable 11th. So what the blocking house means is, the information in the blocking house means is that when planets, for Tula Rasi people, when planets move over their 12th house, the 3rd house positive results will be blocked by the planets that are actually going over the 12th house. Karkadaga Rashi people, it is in the 6th house. So from Karkadaga, the 9th house, which is Pisces, any planet goes over Pisces, then the good effects of Saturn being in the 6th house will be temporarily blocked. Same is true of Kumbha Rasi people. Any planet going over a 5th house, over your 5th house from your moon sign, will block the favorable results of the 11th house.